Hello, a very good evening to one and all. On behalf of Team Road, I, Aishwarya, welcome you all. We are all gathered here today for the VD Joshi Memorial Lecture 2025. Before we begin, let me take a moment to introduce Road to those who are here with us for the first time. Road, Room Open to Art and Design, is an initiative established in 2006 by a group of like minded architects with a shared vision to encourage young creative minds to explore new possibilities, uncover unknown avenues, and reinterpret the spaces around us. Through its efforts, Road strives to refresh design awareness, promote sustainable ideas, and embrace the vibrancy of modernity while respecting the enduring light of conservative thought. This platform aims to install hope and inspiration, nurturing interactions that enlighten both students and professionals alike. Tonight's event is yet another chapter in this journey of exploration and learning. We are here today for the V.D. Joshi Memorial Lecture. Late Vishnu Joshi, Papaji, as we fondly remember him, was born on the 14th February 1927. He graduated from College of Engineering, COEP, in 1948. He then joined MES and worked on NDA project Pune. He later went to Cambridge, England for post-graduation in structural engineering. After working in England for a few years, he joined master architect Joseph Wallenstein's studio in Delhi, where he worked on landmark projects like American Embassy School, Escort Scooter Factory, IIC Delhi Auditorium, India Habitat Center, India International Center, Triveni Kala Sangam, and Express Towers in Mumbai. At the peak of his career with Stein, in 1973, he thought of setting up a workshop for ferrocement, his passion, in Pune near Mumbai under the name of Sarang Ferrocrete and used seahorse as a symbol. Ferrocement was originally invented and patented by Joseph Louis Lambert in 1855 in France, who first constructed a boat and exhibited at Exposition Universelle at Paris. Ferrocement as a construction technique was made popular in India by Joshi sir. He is a pioneer of ferrocement in India. During his experiments in Pune, his wife, Malti Dai, became a strong support. Both together continued to work for next 14 years. Then he shifted to Pune. The use of wool slabs, concrete block construction technique, now popularly known as Vishnu Paddhat, poured rubble masonry for villages in Maharashtra, and ferrogami, a word made popular by Joshi sir taken from origami, for the art of ferrocement. He worked on water tanks, boats for fishermen, grain store, septic tanks, and shelter for poor. All this was near to his heart, and he kept working on his belief that it is most suitable technique for developing countries like India, which could help in employability of unskilled labor. Architect Narendra Dengre from Pune, who worked with Joshi sir on projects like Sri Ramakrishna Mandir, his own studio and house in Pune, Archaeological Museum in Srinagar, and Workers' Club at Deccan Flora Base, first met this pipe-smoking English gentleman in 1973 in New Delhi. He says, I have known him to possess a very keen mind, eager like a child, seasoned like a very experienced engineer, and uncompromisingly authoritative about his design, which comes only from deep conviction. His other known buildings using ferrocement are Doshi Hussain Gufa in Ahmedabad for Balkrishna Doshi, his own building Arunodaya complex in Pune, and a 30-meter tall pyramid in Narayangao for Girish Doshi. Triveni Ashram at Markar, Pune by Arjun Doshi is inspired by his teachings and is built by his second generation Adivasi team from Pune. After his demise in 2011, it was decided that in the memory of this visionary structural engineer, every year on Valentine's Day, which happens to be his birthday, V.D. Joshi Memorial Lecture will be held. So here we are today. Today we have an interesting event ahead of us. We have with us Vagish Naganur and Gurjit Singh Matharoo with us. Um, Vagish is a graduate in architecture and a postgraduate in landscape design from CEPT Ahmedabad. He moved from this city, this dry city, to Bengaluru, the city of more than just gardens. With his fondness for wilderness and his desire for emptiness, his interests branched out further by intertwining with many firms as their consultant and as design faculty with a few schools of architecture. He loves treading the informal path, unraveling hidden stories along its trail, and now, with this budding foray into storytelling, he's trying to live up to his name, Vagish, the god of speech. We also have with us Gurjit Singh Matharoo. I don't think he needs any introduction, but still, to give a glimpse about his personality, I would request Shabir sir to please come forward.
Hello. Good evening, friends. It's a pleasure to introduce dear friend Gurjit on this beautiful evening and and setting facilitated by Road and Sar. It's a difficult to talk about Gurjit's work in a linear fashion, as he's doing so many things in each of his creation. He's a brutalist at heart, but also his architecture is full of light. I call him Schwarzenegger with a rose. But the most enduring quality is that he has introduced movement to what was static till yesterday. His architecture is literally on the move, where walls move to create space or they rotate to form views or slide to connect to other spaces. He is as revolutionary as Alexander Calder's sculptures, who made static sculptures to kinetic play of shapes and colors. And in spite of this dynamism, his buildings are very stoic. The other quality that is, in spite of being stoic, it's full of playfulness. You just have to look at the curtain door sway and dance like a ballet dancer or the windows of a house of balls. How does one define this architecture? It rises above categorization. But most importantly, today I want to talk about Gurjit's early work, namely Ashwin Kumar Crematorium in Surat. When the history of Indian architecture is written, it will be mentioned as a seminal work because here he reimagined what a crematorium is. Crematoriums before Ashwin Kumar Crematorium were just large halls, as can be seen in these slides. In Ashwin Kumar Crematorium, Gurjit designed spaces where private grief has a place, where one function does not overlap with the other. And in terms of architecture, what one can say, but requests that one should visit and experience a light when it wraps the curved wall and breaks into shadows. Friends, let's give Gurjit a big hand and invite him to make a presentation.
Yeah, it's a beautiful evening, and thank you, Shabir, for making this lovely presentation. You don't deserve that much. Um, Thank you, Girish, for having me here. And he just called and he said we want to invite you for this lecture. And I must say, I didn't know much about Vishnu Joshi, and today when I came to know, it's a brilliant coincidence that he was a structural engineer like my father, who passed away about 9 months back. And our works that you see and going to see are entwined with structure. So he's been a great influence. And when me and Vagish were writing this book, that is the second part of our presentation, we dedicated it to my father, and he was also called Papaji in the office. So it's quite a big coincidence that both are structural engineers. Both have shaped the way in which we work today, and both have the same respect that they claim. So thank you so much for having me and Vagish, and we have more. We'll come to that later. So let's start with some. Yeah, so that's the title. It's called Witness to Matharoo Spirit. This is the name of the book, story book, narrated by Vagish Naganur and co-written by both of us. It's a book on our practice over the last 30 years, incidents from our practice, and they have been compiled into a book. As we go along, we'll start revealing a little bit more about the book. So let's make a beginning. So witness, it's the playfulness that maybe Vagish can explain better because it's the word which is given by him. My surname is Matharoo, and for so many generations we didn't know the real meaning. And there was a friend who broke it into two words and said your surname means Matharoo. So that has stuck, and so we quite like it, and so that's the name. We'll come to that next. I have to run. Should I run or? Okay. Yeah. So. Witness to Matharoo Spirit is a series of this is the foreword written by Mr. V. Raghunathan. He's a great author, writing on Indian psyche and how we behave. So it's an excerpt from that, which is a great introduction to our book. That's the book that you will get to know more about as we go further. These are some of the buildings that I'm covering in this presentation. We try to give a name which is a symbolic name to all our projects. So these are the names given to, they are internal names, they are not the names the buildings are known by. And like Shabir is talking, that there could be many sources of inspiration. The inspiration can come from anywhere. So we just have to be open to accept ideas that come to your mind and maybe take them further. So this is the first one. Been doing some automobile tinkering for a long time now, and this is one of our products. This is another one that we made, a vanity van for a film star. And now we come to the building. This was constructed in 2000, so long back. But the building has a connection with these vans. These are blood donation vans, which were designed for them because this was one institute which wanted to convert the blood dispersion, how you buy blood, into a voluntary process. Normally you have to replace blood to buy blood. So they wanted to stop that. So they wanted the whole thing to be a very a flamboyant thing that you want to, like going to a cafe or going to a pub, you go to donate blood. So they created these blood vans, which would run throughout the city, and voluntarily people would flock to the van and donate blood. That's the inside of the van, which has got these donor chairs. So we were designing everything. The dentist chairs were converted into blood donation chairs. So internally we call it the vampire's lounge, you know. So maybe Vagish could read this out because these are the words of Vagish. He's the storyteller.
So when he invited me to write the book, because I know him since my student days actually, or childhood. Sorry.
You're still a child.
Yeah. So there is joke between us is I joined as an intern when G with capital was not G with capital in those days. He was a small G actually at that time. So literally we had a one room office and there was one draftsman. So those were many of the anecdotes were from the early days. I know his early days, so a lot of struggle. So I could take a humorous comment on him and all that. The joke is that I have never left as a trainee still now. I'm still a trainee actually. So that's a joke between us. So some of the things that I juxtapose a story and his life together to get certain kind of kick out of calling him. Sometimes I would casually also talk about these things. So I try to capture. So anyway, let me. So design remained his unrequited love, whom he could not marry because of the bullish professor and mechanical instinct that remained coiled up, burst out occasionally through his buildings. The blood building had given ample opportunity to flirt with his first love. So we are talking about these two loves. One is the bike, which is kinetic. Other is architecture, which is static. And he's swaying between these two as two loves. And later in connection, it is a Govinda's love story with two wives, actually. So buy the book and you will get the
People will
high
take
of
it
it.
literally.
Yeah.
Vagish, you have to be careful.
So those connections I brought out. I think he will like it also. Gurjit will like it. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah, so that lounge gets converted or vice versa. You don't know which one went there. So this is the lounge in the building where you are seated low and you look out into a koi pond and the surroundings are completely cut off. So you have this relation with the nature. And that's the pond on the outside, an extremely low cost building. This was so we had to design everything in house just to keep the cost very, very low. And that's the section of the lounge which basically explains that you're cutting off the sky, but you're getting the green and the water to the lounge chair, to the person who is donating. And that's the building. So everything was wrapped up. It was a curious looking building. I mean, it is a curious looking building, and a lot of children come to play here, which is very nice because this whole inhibition of the blood is lost once you are here. Some more views. Extremely thin walls. They were only maximum 5 inches thick, going up to 18 meters high. This was before the earthquake, and this building took the earthquake very well. This was probably one of the only buildings at that time which did not have a single rupee spent in repairs after the earthquake. So it shook a lot, but it came back to the same position. Yeah, so the curtain wall, which is inside the building, so it does not take any heat, and an atrium space. So the laboratories are all showcased, and you have the public domain, which is also with a red stone flooring. That's another view, and the highlights of the blood storage, etc., are pulled out. This is the hangout balcony. This is the cold freezer, and you have all the processes which are showcased here. Yeah, this atrium remains cool on its own. We had made this canopy to hide an air conditioning system with grills behind here, but it was never used. For 1 year, they found the atrium was cool enough. This is actually the wall which is blocking the sun, and you get indirect sun inside. Rough wood shuttering, very simple, used all over mostly, and some precast elements which were which were kept in place to make the staircases. So, and you see that the railing is also held from the wall and not on the steps, so they are left free and untouched. Second part, which is trying to get inspired by nature, what we see around, try to conserve it as much as possible. Ahmedabad is very different from Pune. It's completely dry and arid mostly, and you have to really work hard to get a green going. So that's our office. We have, this is one example where we have brought in nature into our office. So there is a swimming pool inside. We're trying to bring in light in whatever manner into the house. So you cut down the harsh sun, but you get a reflective light in. Come to the second project, which is it's called the Powerhouse. It's in Karjat, so I thought it makes a good relation because it's not far from here. And there is a road called the Tata Power Road, and the houses of the rich and the powerful are all lining this road. So it's called the Powerhouse. And that was, there is a waterfall here, and that's the house. And there are one or two properties in between. And this story is about this whole uh, relation that is established between the waterfall and the building. Yeah, Vagish.
Yeah, in this the situation is one thing that he left out is that Tata Power Canal is actually like it almost looks like an artificial water body because when the dam opens, water comes. When dam is shut, it is actually absolutely dry. Actually, you can walk across. On the other side of the canal are actually our tribals. Tribals actually don't do agriculture. Here are the rich people who are urban, but they try to do agriculture. It's very funny actually. It's a kind of contrast. People are supposed to be tribal, they don't do agriculture. Here they are doing. So that's an interesting situation. Do it now. G was not melodious in the least. Today was Amavasya, sir. We don't touch our tools. No Amavasya for me. Pass me your axe. G almost became Parshurama and made a neck cutting gesture like that. No, sir, not today. Please, sure tomorrow. Man of sight pleaded to save the sanctity of Amavasya. So the site engineer was asked to cut that one little element to see the waterfall, and he couldn't do it. He was avoiding it, and it happened to be on that day Amavasya. He visited the site. And he's telling, cut it now, and he's telling the local sentiments of no, sir, Amavasya will not touch the tool at all. That kind of intensity of him and the other guy who believes the localness of belief, and the other guy is holding on to architecture actually. It's a battle of it. Ultimately, we have to succumb to that. There are local beliefs. What happened to the story?
Thank
Buy
you,
the
Vagish.
book.
So that's the section. This is that living. These are the suites, and you have a swimming pool. So when you are in this living space, you have water on both the sides, the river and the pool. And those are the suites with a louvered system which can close and open and what you like reflected in the pool. And that's the river in front, which is as natural as it can be to me, except on some days when you don't see any water.
Any water at all, actually.
And yeah, so it was surprising because all the time I visited the site, which must have been at least 25 times, the water was flowing. Then we invited the entire office to visit,
There's no water.
and there was zero water. And they thought I was bluffing all around. So such things happen. Yeah. So it's a structural. It's a verandile which is supported on two columns, and you have the view of the river. I would say most of the time. And that's the office. We are not showing the river right now. Yeah. So also testing of the cantilever. I mean, yeah, all the heavy weights are here. So I want to make very clear. People see all the work and they see good drawings, etc., and they think that it's me who is behind all this. None of this is done by me. It's all good people, brilliant people in the office who manage everything.
Wait. The one. Just go back once. Yeah. So the obsession with watching the waterfall was such an extent that We make drawing with some Google map and then we allow it, line ho gaya and then you build it. No, here the architect himself sacrificed his body. He stood like that. There is the waterfall, there is the alignment. He sacrificed his own body to align itself. That was the obsession. Now you can relate it to Amma said, how much important what it was.
Yeah, because it was difficult to convince the clients to build it in this very close to the river because they had a huge property and they said, why here? And we had very strong reasons for it being here only. Inspiration from structure. This is, I think, the most obvious in our work, and also coming from Papaji. So in 1993, there was a client who wanted, there's some examples, we are not getting into the details of these. He wanted an ornate building. And 93, we had just started, and we could not lose the project. And we wanted concrete. So this is what happens when you mix concrete and ornament together. So we made this entire building in precast in a place which had not seen any concrete before. So this was my father standing on the side, getting each piece casted. And if you notice, it starts with a thicker. This is 1 foot, and it becomes thinner here, becomes 9 inches, and then it becomes 6 inches. So it is actually reducing. It is as it goes out, it becomes lighter and lighter. And later on, we calculated we must have made more than 500 small pieces like this. Staircase was precast, all elements precast, and it ended up being more than 100 columns. So we call it the house with 100 columns. Then another, this is a recent one where we poured the concrete from the slab, and it went into this formwork to form the staircase. So this is very thin and liquid concrete, recently done, but still an experiment in structure. The project. So this was this client who wanted a house completely open to nature, yet giving him all the creature comforts. Nature in Ahmedabad is 45 degrees centigrade. So of course he didn't want nature, but nature as we can cut a small piece of it. And so the general approach is that clients, they want you to work 2-3 times, so they never accept your first idea. So the first idea is like the wildest. You just say anything because you know that it is going to be thrashed. So we presented this. We said, see, no columns, no walls, floating nature all around. We knew that he will say, okay, what are the other options? Show us something else. And he said, this is exactly what I want. And it was not possible. So basically, the idea was that there will be thin mullion kind of columns which will come, because we wanted it. I mean, he wanted no insects also. And I was amazed. I was yesterday with Shabir in his beautiful Machan, and there were absolutely no mosquitoes. And I said, oh, come on, how come you don't have mosquitoes? He said, no, we have not faced this problem. So that is strange. In Ahmedabad, you can't keep it open. So we said, only net. It will be just covered with net. So we needed these mullions to hold the net together. And we thought that would be the structure. It needed a proper slab so that the water doesn't come in. So the idea was to integrate the structure, steel structure on top with the concrete slab to make it one, and that would hold the. The problem was, if that came first, steel came first, it would not hold on its own unless the slab was there. And if we did the slab first, it would not hold by itself because there are no supports, no structure. So finally it was decided that we will go with the slab first and do the. So anyway, that's the section. You have the thick slab and you have the structure on top. The structure goes around and goes down, not touching the slab. So the slab was cast. This is a picture of the slab cast without any support. It's in mid-air. So they say structural calculations, they start counting the loads from the top. So we said, let's start building also from the top. So the building was done, and the whole idea was that the steel, fabricated steel would come and we would start bolting it. In 28 days when the shuttering is there, we would have the steel bolted on top, and by the time you remove it, it's a full structure. Only how things happen, that steel was 3 months late. So 3 months, this became a site that nobody wanted to venture close by. And a lot of stories went around that, oh, they've cast a slab, now they're thinking of how to hold it. you know, yeah.
So, as he started telling that, there was a kind of lot of rumors going on in the surroundings that there are many rumors, also many types are there. People started mocking the decision that he didn't know how to structure a design. Some people started thinking it's a haunted place. And because that slab, when it's because of bamboo, some of the bully supports, when it's in the evening, it starts making creaking noise in the night. So the laborers who are there on the site, they can see it much more because day and night they are there, and they start believing these. And there's a kind of, I heard creaking sounds in the night. I dare not go under it. And in Ahmedabad, here you are not used to it. In Ahmedabad, in those days, they used to use a lot of donkeys to move the earth actually, as a loaded donkey and then do it like that. So, and donkeys also have their own waywardness, sometimes they become naughty and they just. So he's trying to tell that I dare not take the donkey near it, otherwise it will just bump it and the whole thing will come down actually. So these laborers are talking like that. Those are the real situations which I told. So this floating slab became the object of consumption from a bizarre phenomenon to a subject of ridicule. I also felt it was absurd. G was going a bit too far for everyone's comfort. Even taking Newton's gravity very, very lightly. So that is how it is, from very theoretical to very local laborer's logic. And
yeah. So especially in this house, there was a lot of earth movement because this is the only connection with the slab. This is how it opened finally.
I
After
think just go
convincing a
back
lot.
once, I think we talk about a bit about that loaded donkey to my dad's thing. So if you look at this, the title of this is a title of the story in the book actually, the loaded donkey and the flying carpet. So whenever I used to go to Ahmedabad and sometimes I would go to his house, his dad was there. So once I think he said he was going to this site, the net house site. Papaji, with his enthusiasm, very childlike enthusiasm, I also want to come. तो गुरजीत said, नहीं अभी तो खड़ा है, आपका क्या काम है? It is standing. So he said, but sway हो रहा है थोड़ा, थोड़ा sway हो रहा है. अब क्या करोगे? Like that. It's a challenge. Father and son are giving it to each other like that. So the structure in here gave a very fantastic metaphor which I can never forget. That actually gave the title to this story and also the real life donkeys that we see in that area. He said अगर गधे के ऊपर कुछ लोड डालते हैं ना, थोड़ा हिलने लगता है, थोड़ा ऐसा ऐसा. थोड़ा और लोड डाल देंगे ना, हिलना बंद हो जाता है. That's one of the most beautiful solutions that I have ever seen actually. Okay, that actually triggered this title actually in memory of Papaji. We'll never forget it actually.
Yeah, one second. So forgot to mention that there is under this building, there is a huge rainwater tank. So this building was 40 feet by 40 feet, but the client went in for 14 lakh liter of rainwater collection, and so that it could be used for 6-7 months. So that is why there was a lot of earth movement here.
Yeah.
And that earth that was taken out was piled up to create mounds all around to cut it off from. So there were a lot of donkeys on the site as Vagish is talking. Uh, if we had thought of the story, maybe we would have pictured it with the donkey. It's not there. Yeah, so this is how it opened, and you have this water pipe which brings in the water, and then the water comes in through here, but it doesn't fall. It goes up because we needed a column to support the railing, and it falls here back into the, and then it is taken with this filtration. It is taken into the earth.
How to torture water like that? It's like that basically.
So it's got these different screens. You have the layer of glass which can be folded and kept aside, and you have a cabinet which holds. This was in 2010. No, I think 2005 or 6, and so basically, once you close the cabinet, you have the dining table, the chairs, all crockery, TV, kitchen, refrigerator. These are the air conditioning units, and behind is all the plumbing. There are two toilets behind. So one cabinet holds the entire house basically. Rest everything is open. There's nothing. So you lock this, and it's done. And the top of this, because not to attract the insects, is a indirect light. Maybe there's a picture. So this is the steel bolted onto the concrete to make it one. So though together they're acting as one. And steel that arrived 3 months later. And that's the net house. The dictionary meaning of net is from which nothing can be removed, from to which nothing can be added. So it was just minimum, and you can slide the screens up and down. So that's the first layer. You have the second layer of the bamboo chicks, and then you have the glass, and the fourth layer, which is all closed now. Another view of the mound, and underneath there is a lot of water which you can't see. So there is this, we love, besides doing drawings, etc., for buildings, to work with artists, So always try to have some nice sculpture in the building, and there was one time. So this is one example where it's similar to the one that you saw just now, but the water is always rising up. So it's rising up and falling. Anyway, so one water fountain. Then Rajesh Sagara did this beautiful octopus in one of our swimming pools. So working along with artists is something that we love to do. In the same that net house side, there is a open air shower area with this very rustic rock-like concrete. So sculptural, man-made god. This is another project for a temple, and this was a sect which believes in many gods. So we were able to convince them that you don't have any ornament because we don't know which god to cater to. Let the light play on the walls, and that would be the. And then the centerpiece. Instead of having an idol, let's have the shivling in the center. So it's a story about how this got convinced, and because they couldn't afford an artist, they asked us architects, because architects the work scope is not defined. They can ask you anything. They say, why don't you do it? We can't afford an artist. So as part of the fees, we also made this sculpture.
Yeah, actually, there was a young priest who was in charge of this, who was interacting with the architect and the main priest. He's a messenger between the boss there, and so he was quite enthused, and he played a very key role in many decisions and getting them conveyed. So this story actually involves about what transition he goes through, rather than a spiritual person converting G converts the spiritual person in this story. Buy the book and you will understand it. Okay. At least within themselves, G and the young priest had replaced the intended idol of Lord Shiva in the sanctum sanctorum with a shivling. an abstract sculpture of male and female union to be carved out by free-spirited sculptors.
Yeah, the
So,
story is called The Young Priest in the Temple of
Temple
Love.
of Love. Basically, that it is called Anand Prakash. What is
No,
it
no,
called?
Prem Prakash.
It's called Prem Prakash Temple, something
Yeah.
like that. It's very well known. Like I went to Ajmer once, and then I was staying there as a part of this. He said, "कहाँ जाना है? प्रेम प्रकाश जाना है." हाँ, जाते हैं. So every auto guys knows and addresses it like that. It's a very accepted thing actually.
So that's it's when it was carved, it was 8 tons, and it had to be hollowed out from inside. Single piece of stone hollowed out from it, and then still it was 5 tons. So we had to, when it was installed, that's a big story about how this whole idol was installed, and we had to put some steel structure below to support it, and finally we had this in the center of the uh, and you have the light which were falling on the walls, which is always changing, and we could convince them not to have any ornament on the walls or anywhere. So that's the ceiling, which becomes like a big collector of water. Ajmer, it's in Rajasthan, and scanty rainfall. So whatever water is there, you want to make a big gesture out of it. Enjoy water and collect as much as you can. So that's the gargoyle which sticks out and have the waterfall as a spectacle. And this is the temple. We are surrounded by rooms on all the sides, and that's the roof that you can see. So it starts with a squarish plan, but as it goes up, it opens up, saying that there is, it is open to interpretation. There is, yeah, you can see the form here. This is the base of it, starting like that. As it goes up, it changes and it becomes. So the building itself is quite sculptural. And again in Ajmer, without any previous experience of concrete, we were able to cast this entire thing uh, in concrete, changing form. So it was quite commendable work at that time. So this from the corridors you capture the entire town on all the three sides, and the center becomes more sacred and protected. We do a lot of doors, different kind of doors. Shabir also showed. I think some of the videos might repeat. This is Lucio. He's the other. Uh, the second forward is written by Lucio. He's a fantastic architect living in Mexico, and he came to visit a lot of our buildings. This is brilliantly shot by Edmund, who is here with us. We're going to bring him on sometime. Another door. This you saw. This is our office where you have these louvers which can slide up and pivot out. So adjustable louvers. Come to another project called Open Door. Yeah, Vagish.
So this was a situation where lot of this story is based on what you call ghost behind disappearing walls. I think I'll leave it to you to look at the images. Then we'll come back to this again. I'll just read it. Then we'll come back to. Make them openable for event. So they disappear from the view. Was this quick fix? So there was a competition. So they wanted view of a certain opening, and then but they also need an enclosure. So it's a flexible use of a building actually. So this was a solution which was unimaginable, but it was thrust upon by on the workers in the office. Workers means the assistant and younger architect. They do it at any cost so that we can throw it on that. Basically, that was the situation. 3-story high walls, that disappear, A, the architect was curiously serious. She was taking a lot of interest. The architect was taking in charge, and she was like really defending. Somehow we should get this competition project. The architect was curiously serious. Only for the proposal, also make those walls a bit colorful, added G. The ghosts of the past design were being exorcised and embodied to the new time, place, and clients. Just then, a passing cloud cast a charcoal grey shadow. A, the architect, coiffed with felter hair. This was basically context of a building that was in the competition, and that building actually long time back G had given it as a part of a competition, but he had not won it. The architect who did it, I don't know for what reason, bad omen or whatever, bad situation, that building actually crumbled. Okay, and that entry was there in in the office, but it fitted the program when they were redoing the competition somewhere else. So that actually is a mysterious drawing that is being revisited. It's like a ghost of the past are being rehauled, and it's like opening a chest of that past drawing, and are you revisiting it? So drawings have souls, designs have souls. When you open them from the chest, they have their own life in them, and somebody's hair might ruffle, some drawer might shutter like that. So people who have done intense drawing, they know that the drawing has a life in it. It cannot be just buried. When you take it out, it starts speaking to you. Basically, that's the situation actually. Thanks. Next.
Yeah, so just to show that they are very tall, we got an elephant. You have to give it scale. Brilliantly shot by Edmund again. So that's the space inside which opens out to the public in case of events. Otherwise, it is an office building. It's the corporate building for the Guyhead Credai headquarters in Gujarat. Building is in Ahmedabad. So that's the view from the garden side, and you see the ground floor, which is completely open and it spills over onto this side. Staircase inside in the reception area. Another staircase which is cantilevered from a curved wall. Again, you see that the it's not supported. When you have this very fine staircase, you don't want to support it on the staircase, so we take the supports from the slabs or the walls and let it be free all around. Yeah, this should be a video. One sec. Yeah, this is another
loading,
one.
yeah.
So they completely, you can just push them out, and the building becomes open to the street. There are no steps, just ramps, so you can just walk in. So in the events, they open the entire building. This is, one sec, I have to show this. Yeah, so in one of the floors, this is your ground, and you have major parking underneath. And when it comes to the first floor, it's a verandile truss. So columns stop here. This becomes a truss. Oh, sorry, this becomes a truss together, and it gives you a large hall which is free of any columns. And the columns reappear on the top floor, the part of the girder, but you don't see them as girder. We come to the next chapter, which is getting inspiration from abstract geometry, and there's a project here. So, like I said, that inspiration could come from anywhere. Girish also told me there are a lot of students who attend this um, event. So I thought it is interesting to probably bring this aspect that you can get inspired by anything. It is not necessarily a linear process. So some examples of how we have abstracted geometry to get form. These are all cubes uh, which have been diagonally cut to get these geometrical shapes. Another brilliant picture by Edmund, and these are these blocks which are arranged geometrically. Each one is very pure and separate from each other. Another structure that we carried out where the geometry was a very complex one and made even more complex with the structure that was used. And the project now, set in stone. This was a Dharamshala, Jain Dharamshala, and this is in Rajasthan, and you get very good stone in the vicinity. So we build these thick walls, uh, which basically divide the space. And there is a corridor, so there are two floors. You can see the floor here, and there is another floor here, and the corridor is in the middle, hanging. So the ground floor opens out completely on two sides, and so is the top floor, which opens out completely. And this story is about the tower that was supposed to be here. But anyway, we'll come to that. If you see the staircase, they have been cantilevered inside into these boxes, and you see that there is one staircase which is turned around. It's going in the other direction. So this you'll see the shadow is not following, and people think that there is some philosophical reason. And there, of course, is. It's the contractor's contribution to the project, you know. So we have always these surprises, and you have to build them into your theory later on. You change the brief to adjust to what the contractor has actually done on site. So you see the section here, it opens out over this roof uh, into the wilderness. One side there is a lake, and one side the Aravali Hills, and same on the lower floor. And this is hanging in the middle. And the tower. The plan open on two sides, fully open. I mean, this is the passage, and ends in an amphitheater.
So every time G looks, whenever I used to travel with him, he would look at the syntax tags and says, "Ki, we had one element that also this industry has taken over, you know." The one of the solid that would, like a vertical element. And all of you architecture students and even young architects, when it is a thesis project, there has to be a vertical tower element, shadow of which will fall onto the amphitheater. And that's what is a glorification of thesis actually. Now with this kind of industry which is solved all the leakage problems, etc., whatever little element that we had, that is also gone. With gravity, etc., they were giving many interesting items, whether it is a vertical tower or this, that, etc. So they would give some elements to play with. Now that has all been taken over by the. So this story is actually about this element. So this, in this case, every time G looks at the ugly syntax tanks crowning over tops, his mouth waters. He sees an opportunity there, actually. So to make it happen. Okay, that's how it is.
So these are the walls, and um, it was for the Jain pilgrims. So we made 24 suites, one for each Tirthankara. And so there were certain number of walls, dimensions, etc. So that was the modules. Finally, you have the same module in the yellow box, which is the administrative block. And when you put them all together and take this yellow box and join it, it becomes a perfect cube. So the entire mass can be finally. And the story is that if it becomes a perfect cube, then where is the tower? There is no place for the tower. Yeah, that is the room which opens out on two sides. So you can see just plywood partitions, and you have the stone wall which is continuing inside. That's the passage. We were going to do the slab on top, but then they carry the drinking water on their shoulders up, so they needed some clearance for that. So we had to go for this polycarbonate sheet, and like in line with our shooting with the animals, there are 10,000 cows in this campus, so they circle around this dharamshala also.
Let me just, so just go back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so he showed that cube with a perfect geometry, and separating out those elements will give them a space, etc. And he asked that question, where is the tower? He needed one to anchor that cube and make a dialogue between that, whatever the form that comes out of it, and something that pins it into the ground like that. So, with his smart head, he said, we need a water tank. So clients were more smart than that. We already have a much bigger tank, which is much higher than that. So now what to do? How to bring a tower? So he also realized that in India we have this negotiation of feeding certain animal or something like that, and then getting the punya of it. He had seen it. Maybe he believes it. I don't know. But he thought he should use that phenomena. He told them, we need a chabutara for we need a chabutara for devotees to come and feed. And if you look at in quite a bit of Rajasthan and even some parts of Gujarat, the community builds chabutaras actually. So they agreed that we can have a chabutara. So the tower story started actually. So what happens to the tower? Why it became a dotted line in the picture? Read the book.
Topology is a science of surface, and so basically, without without adding or removing, you can transform like origami kind of a surface into something. So for a long time now, for 20 years, every year we convert one of our buildings into a greeting card, which is a pop-up card, and this is an installation in Venice Biennale, which is based on one of our buildings. This happened in 2018. Yeah, it's a movie, but maybe it's not. Uh, so you see, the surfaces uh, are cut and folded. They are not added. If you just fold it all up, it will become a single sheet of that material, and all the spaces are actually transformed or made out of this process of using the same plane. So these are some of our cards that we make. Any building, we try to. So this is an interesting exercise that is given to any like it is thrown open to all the office people if they have an interesting idea, one of the buildings that they are working on or they are seeing being done, if they can convert it into an abstract form, which is then made into a card every year. This is another one. Another one, a high rise next to a lake. So this time around, we thought we've been doing these cards for 20 years, making building. Let's do the reverse. Let's take a card and convert it into a building. So this is a building which is called cut, fold, bend, and play. It's basically one single plane, which is then made into all the elements of the house. It's a very small house, surrounded by high-rise buildings, etc. And then finally you see that it's the same. A lot of these planes don't even come down. Like for example, this plane is not coming down, or this plane is not coming down, this plane is not coming down. So they kind of float in the air, almost like a floating space, and then you get the lower floor, which is your usable floor, almost free of any obstructions. Another view. So you have this outer wall and you have this outer wall which come down, rest, and then this one, and that's about it. Okay. That's another view. You see the door here, which also becomes one of the planes, once it opens. And then in between the planes, you allow the light to fall into the so that the planes are exaggerated at different times. This is the courtyard, which is again formed by, so quite a structural exercise, but finally we were able to. I don't think we have a card for this building because it was a card that is converted the other way around. So that's the house. It's so much surrounded by these buildings, but once you're inside, you don't have any presence of the buildings around it. Entrance.
Well, I am Suresh Matharoo. I am one among the three brothers of a joint family business conglomerate based out of Chennai.
The context itself gave birth to the courtyard and an inward-facing house. The land is surrounded by an extremely tall residential tower. Surrounded to another side is like another individual house, and behind also there's an individual house. So there was actually nowhere to look. I was studying architecture then, and I had gone to a trip to Surat to study Ashwini Kumar crematorium by Gurjit Singh Matharoo. When the design had begun, the very core idea was the idea of a courtyard house, a central courtyard. The house elevation is extremely unassuming from the outside, as it's a tight landlocked space, and so the idea of an inward facing house was extremely central. We are also a family which love to host. So understanding that requirement, the courtyard is surrounded by the formal living, the informal living, the puja area, the dining area, which is basically the entire living floor, and the public floor is kind of very well connected and surrounded by the courtyard. And on the upper floor becomes the more private spaces, a very intimate lounge for the family, surrounded by 3 bedrooms, the daughter's bedroom and the master bedroom. The courtyard almost functions as the heart of the entire space, be it from the bedrooms, be it from the living areas, be it from the intimate lounge that's looking upwards. The courtyard kind of connects the entire space, hence connecting our entire family.
Story is called A Yearning for Love. So when you look at, obviously all of us are architects, I think you can understand that house is one of the most complex projects anybody will deal with, because there is no one client, there are million clients in it's a house project. House owners, their grandchild, grandfather, neighbors, aunts, uncles, mummy G's, vastu person, everybody is a client there. Million clients. So when you look at it, the house, there is a universal principle that an architect is trying to work with a new departure in family structure or the idea of the family or whatever his vision is trying to do. But the clients are looking at an extreme personalization. मेरे को क्या है उसमें, मेरा पूजा कैसा होगा, dog is saying where I should go and hide in the morning or evening, like that. Kid will say where I should play. Mother will have her own personal requirement. Everybody has own personal requirement. So whatever that you design, you might say biggest universal principles that you are doing. But when you show the drawing, they all looking at that particular spot. मेरे को क्या है इसमें? So what happens is when they agree or disagree, it is based on that person. They don't look at larger picture. You cannot expect them also. So this was the story where Gurjit goes to convince the clients about something, and the clients are looking at that extreme personal interest in that. And he gives that some masala, and they agree. The whole family agrees on that. What is that masala? Read the book. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's the book, and now I will ask Vagish to continue his. Maybe Aishwarya can call him. He's already known to use. He's got
No,
it
you can
introduced.
No
But
need.
anyway, he's the Sutradhar in the book.
Yeah.
You can see here. Yeah, Vagish, all yours.
Sometimes it looks like that Gurjit wrote this book to use the word Sutradhar. He was obsessed with it. So he found one character like me to put it into it. So in this, the challenge was he had to write a story, but who will describe it? Who will write it? So you need a third character to write it. And then that character sometimes is in the story, sometimes outside the story, sometimes he's critiquing it, sometimes he's joining the chorus to play with it. So that's kind of flexible character is there in the Sutra, the traditional stories that are there. He comes to solve the problem or sometimes create the problems. So both, that's what we thought we'll use it. Next. So in this, I'm going to take some small paragraphs of the book so that you get a taste of what is written, and then so that we can look at it as a kind of sample this thing. So this story is called Losing Steam. The steam is a clue here. Basically, it was a railways building, and then, but we're not going to show the same building here. We're going to show something parallel to that and what happens around it. Anyway, the building was complete, and it also received the Best Railway Building of the Year award given by the railways to the railways themselves. Understand that? Just one wish had remained unfulfilled, that is G's animal instinct. It was to photograph this 300-foot long edifice before it turned into a typical file pile government office. It's going to become like a lot of files. Before that, he should click it. In continuation with his infatuation of shooting animals against his buildings, G had secretly desired for it to be shot alongside an elephant to go with the mammoth scale of the building. Of course, he would not find a white elephant, so his wish would have to be just black. Shooting at the elephants is an elephantine task. They are expensive, take a day to arrive, and need 40 kilos of feed while they trample all the lawns and bushes and shrubs. This is if you're lucky. If not, there is a housekeeping bill and stink that one has to live with afterwards. I think the next one I will not read it, I think. So there are these slides. Yeah. So I have seen this story is called The Last Era of Blue Printogosaurus. We have seen, look, I can see there is a variety of age group from like maybe like 20, 25s to like maybe almost close to 60, 70, some of you. So some of you have gone through this an office when it used to have ink drawings, hand drafted ones, and blueprint was being done, and everything was with full of hand drawings, and everything was tactile, model making. Now everything is software. Mouse is everything actually. So early days of G's office when it started in mid 90s, etc., etc. We have gone through that office, and then we try to capture certain part of that environment, and what happens to that touch and feel kind of thing in an office. Pre-computer days were tactile and humane. The drawing board was a sacred zone. Each of them was unique, with tools assimilated and laid out differently. Further, intimate engagement happened through innumerable doodles and scribbles dotting the base sheet, giving a sneak peek into one's personal life. There was a standard decorum of guarding and protecting it, covering it with soft cloth and clean paper, as if putting the sheet to the bed before calling it to a day. Utmost care was taken not to render it with sepia rings of the tea and other culinary exploits of the day. To clear the frivolous freckles and marks, the humble leftover bread, that too without butter, was the only edible allowed on the board to rub down the drawing for a cleansing ritual. Each drawing was a distilled process to arrive at a few meaningful lines, had a personality of its own. Even though drawing was the same set of tools on classic gateway tracing, one could still make out whose drawing it was, just by the intensity of how the lines met, crossed, and ended. There were punters of perfection like a D man, those who could draw to a half a millimeter precision. I'm sure they saw through their mind, not through their eyes, like Arjuna. The rarest of the rare dexterities was the art of stenciling. In order to get a perfect rhythm of spacing strokes and alignment, one had to have a control on hand and breath and mind like a true yogi. While D man had elevated himself to such levels of speed that he could almost write whatever, like that. So, some pictures of the early office as a memory. You can see young thin G there, if you can recognize him. Yeah. So the final one is a bit of philosophical one called Moha Maya. He is a client. This house is very close to your Pune. Close means somewhere around Alibag area. And you know him, very notorious client. You dig it out and buy the book, you can even decode it and you'll understand that. So buildings go through various phases. They go through a long gestation period of ideas developing, getting it built, getting it cleaned, getting it finished, and then you live in it. And then you can also see the building crumbling down for various reasons. Certain terms of political reasons, some king has lost the kingdom and the building comes down. Somebody has violated, so it comes down. There are many ways, or there are structural problems, so it comes. There is a kind of sad end to it, that also. That is also part of our architect's life. Okay, so let us see. With no value attached to the concepts and emotions manifested in frugal materials, it stood there completely lifeless, just waiting to be ruined. Emptied of its movable, removable, and valuable assets like fixtures, furniture, and art, Moha was left abandoned like a decommissioned ship at a scrapyard. After many failed attempts to bulldoze the house, tough Moha had to be blown apart with a dynamite. A live coverage of it ran on national news channel. The dust settled, leaving nothing behind. Yen the silent one kept silent. Society cheered. Vastu man smiled. And the crew took one last look. Crew in the sense the people who built it. The crew took one last look and moved on to the next set. With Moha gone and becoming Maya, the timeless waves on the rocky beach, talking about Alibag beach, the timeless waves on the rocky beach are now the only witness to the web of indestructible stories strewn around. A site has many stories. There are kids born on the site. There are pairs happen on the site. Both architects and then laborers also. So when everything settles, even the building might crumble, those stories will continue to live in people's mind. We try to capture that. Enjoy it by reading the book. Thanks.